In the quiet town of Harlow, nestled between misty hills and dense forests, stood an old Victorian house that the townsfolk avoided at all costs. With its chipped paint, sagging porch, and windows like dark, hollow eyes, Harlow House had a reputation. Legends whispered of the tragic family that once lived there, a family consumed by grief and shadows. The story began in the early 1900s when the Harlows welcomed their only daughter, Margaret, into the world. She was the light of their lives, a vibrant girl with laughter that filled the air like music. But joy turned to despair when a tragic accident claimed Margaret's life just weeks before her 6th birthday. Heartbroken, her parents fell into a dark spiral of sorrow, and the house transformed into a mausoleum of memories. After Margaret's death, strange occurrences began to plague the Harlows. They reported hearing soft giggles echoing through the halls, the sound of tiny footsteps running up and down the staircase, and the scent of lilacs, Margaret's favorite flower, wafting through the rooms, despite the windows being shut tight. The couple, gripped by grief, refused to leave, believing their daughter's spirit lingered to comfort them. As the years passed, the once vibrant home faded into decay. Rumors swirled in the town about the house, tales of sightings of a little girl in a white dress playing in the yard. On stormy nights, locals claimed they could hear her giggles mingling with the howling wind. One summer, a group of adventurous college students, drawn by the eerie allure of Harlow House, decided to investigate. Armed with flashlights, an old camera, and a spirit box, they approached the dilapidated structure as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and claw at them. Stepping inside, they were met with a heavy silence. Dust motes danced in the beams of their flashlights, and the air felt thick, almost electric. The walls were lined with faded portraits of the Harlow family, their eyes appearing to follow the students as they moved through the house. A sense of unease settled in their chests, but they pressed on, excitement tinged with fear. In the parlor, they set up their equipment, hoping to capture a glimpse of the supernatural. As they began their session, static filled the air, and the spirit box crackled to life. "Margaret, are you here?" one of the students called, their voice trembling slightly. The device hummed, and then a soft, childlike voice whispered back, "Play with me." A chill ran down their spines, but curiosity urged them to continue. "What do you want to play?" they asked, and the voice responded with a giggle that sent shivers coursing through their bodies. It was eerily joyful, yet tinged with an unsettling sadness. As they listened, the temperature in the room dropped suddenly, their breath visible in the cold air. The spirit box crackled again. "Hide and seek," it chimed, and before they could respond, they heard the unmistakable sound of small footsteps echoing from the hallway. The group exchanged nervous glances, half expecting a child to emerge. "Let's go check it out," one of them said, though his voice betrayed his fear. They moved cautiously toward the sound, flashlights flickering in the dim light. As they reached the hallway, the footsteps stopped, and a heavy silence enveloped them. Suddenly, a door slammed shut behind them, and the group jumped, hearts racing. "What the hell was that?" one shouted, panic rising. They turned to flee, but found that the hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, the rooms morphing into an uncanny labyrinth. Each turn brought them back to the same spot, and the giggling returned, echoing off the walls. Desperate, they pressed on, calling Margaret's name in hopes of dispelling the sinister atmosphere. But the laughter grew louder, morphing into a cacophony of children's voices, overlapping and chaotic. It felt as though the house itself was alive, feeding off their fear. In their frantic attempts to escape, they stumbled into the parlor again, only to find it transformed. The air shimmered, and they felt an icy presence wash over them. Before them stood a translucent figure of a little girl, her face painted with a sorrowful smile. "You found me," she said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But you must stay just a little longer." The students froze, caught in her gaze, unable to look away. A profound sadness enveloped them, the weight of the house's grief settling in their bones. It was a feeling of longing, a wish to be free from the pain that had shackled the Harlows for so long. Suddenly, The lights flickered violently, and the laughter turned to wails, the walls vibrating with the sound. In a panic, the students broke the spell, rushing toward the front door. The little girl's voice echoed behind them, "Please, don't leave me." With a final burst of adrenaline, they burst through the door into the cool night air, stumbling onto the porch, gasping for breath. They didn't stop running until they reached their car, hearts pounding in their chests. As they drove away, the house receded into the distance, but the sound of giggles lingered in their ears. They would never forget the sorrowful plea of the little girl left behind. Harlow House remained, a chilling testament to the grief that trapped spirits and memories within its walls, whispering secrets to those brave enough or foolish enough to listen. And even as they left, the winds carried her laughter into the night, a haunting reminder that some stories are never truly over. Days turned into weeks, but the students couldn't shake the feeling that something was still tethering them to Harlow House. It wasn't just fear. It was an unsettling sense of connection. They had come seeking thrills, but what they found haunted them in ways they couldn't explain. Jenna, one of the students, felt a pull stronger than the rest. The dreams started that very night after their escape dreams of the little girl in the white dress, standing in the garden, her face a mixture of joy and sorrow. In the dreams, Margaret would reach out, her tiny hand beckoning Jenna to come closer, to play. Each time, Jenna would wake with a start, the echoes of laughter still ringing in her ears. After weeks of sleepless nights, Jenna confided in her friends. "I think I need to go back," she said one evening, her voice trembling. "I can't stop thinking about her. I feel like she's trying to tell me something." Her friends exchanged worried glances. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Mark asked, concern etched on his face. "What if she wants you to stay? What if you get trapped like her parents?" But Jenna was resolute. "I have to know. We can't just leave her there." After much debate, they reluctantly agreed to return. Armed with a more sophisticated recording device and their resolve, they set off for Harlow House once more, the setting sun casting long shadows that danced in the twilight. As they approached the house, the atmosphere shifted, the air thick with anticipation. The once familiar laughter now felt like a siren's call, drawing them in. This time, they were determined not to let fear overtake them. They stepped inside, the door creaking ominously behind them. The parlor was unchanged, but the air felt charged, crackling with an energy that made their skin prickle. They set up their equipment in silence, a nervous tension hanging between them. Jenna took a deep breath, summoning her courage. "Margaret, are you here?" she called, her voice steady. The spirit box responded almost immediately. "Jenna, help me." Jenna felt a jolt of energy surge through her, the urgency in the voice compelling her forward. "What do you need? How can we help you?" The temperature plummeted, and the lights flickered as the device crackled to life. "Play with me forever," the voice whimpered, an underlying tone of desperation seeping through. Suddenly, the room transformed. The dust settled, and vibrant colors flooded in, as if the house itself was remembering a time before grief had clouded its spirit. Jenna saw a vision of the garden, lush and alive with flowers and sunlight, where a little girl spun in circles, her laughter filling the air like a melody. "Margaret!" Jenna cried, reaching out, but the vision began to flicker like a faulty light bulb. The atmosphere turned heavy again, the laughter replaced by a low, sorrowful wail. The walls pulsed with shadows, and Jenna felt as if they were closing in. Mark grabbed her arm, panic flooding his eyes. "We need to go. Now." But Jenna was entranced, her gaze locked on the swirling shadows. "No, I can help her." Before they could pull her away, the air around them thickened, the whispers morphing into a cacophony of voices, those of the Harlows, pleading and mourning. "Leave her! Leave this place!" they cried in unison, their voices layered with despair. Suddenly, Jenna felt an icy hand grasp her wrist, tugging her back. "You don't understand. I'm not alone." The little girl's voice was urgent now, her presence materializing before Jenna, eyes wide with both hope and fear. The other students could only watch as the two locked eyes, a bond forming that transcended the spectral divide. "You must break the cycle," Margaret insisted, her voice trembling with desperation. "Or we'll be trapped forever." The very walls of Harlow House seemed to pulse with energy, vibrating with the weight of unfinished business. Shadows loomed ominously, shifting as if preparing to strike. The house was alive, and it wanted something from them, something more than just fear. "Jenna, come back," Mark yelled, yanking at her arm. But as he did, a flicker of light illuminated the room, revealing images of the Harlow's past-day family bound by love, now shackled by loss. With a surge of determination, Jenna whispered, "I won't leave you, Margaret, I promise." And with those words, the room shifted again. The shadows coalesced into a swirling vortex, drawing Jenna in, her heart racing as she fought to maintain her grip on reality. "Help me," Margaret cried, reaching out. Jenna felt the weight of the moment crash over her, the history of grief clashing with the innocence of childhood. "What do I need to do?" she shouted, her voice breaking through the chaos. "Find the truth," Margaret's voice echoed, pulling Jenna deeper into the past. "Find my mother." Before Jenna could respond, the world around her shattered into darkness, and she was engulfed in a whirlwind of memories, her consciousness spiraling through time as the voices of the past echoed in her ears. As the shadows closed in, Jenna could feel Margaret's presence, with her a flicker of hope in the encroaching darkness. And somewhere, deep within the labyrinth of memories, she knew she was on the verge of uncovering the truth that could finally free them all. But would she have the strength to face it, or would Harlow House claim her as it had claimed so many before? The darkness tightened its grip, and the whispers grew louder, echoing with the urgency of their plight, drawing Jenna closer to the heart of the mystery that bound them all together. And silence. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. In the suffocating silence, Jenna felt herself drifting, suspended between realms. Time lost meaning, and she became aware of flashes of memories swirling around her, snippets of laughter, the aroma of lilacs, the soft patter of tiny feet. She clung to these sensations, hoping they would guide her to Margaret's truth. Suddenly, a vivid scene materialized around her. She was in the garden, the sun shining bright, casting golden rays over colorful blooms. But the joy was short-lived as she saw a young woman in a white dress, Margaret's mother, Eliza. The woman knelt by a patch of daisies, her face a mask of anguish, clutching a faded photograph to her chest. "Margaret," Eliza whispered, her voice thick with sorrow, "I don't know how to let you go." Jenna stepped forward, feeling the pull of the moment. "Eliza," she called, but her voice seemed to dissolve in the air. She watched helplessly as Eliza looked up, her eyes hollow and lost, searching the garden as if she could still see her daughter. The vision shifted, and Jenna found herself in the dimly lit parlor of Harlow House. Eliza sat alone, surrounded by dusty furniture and shadows, her grief suffocating the life out of the room. In that moment, Jenna understood Eliza was trapped in her sorrow, just as much as Margaret was. Determined, Jenna focused on the photograph clutched in Eliza's hands. It was a picture of Margaret, radiant and full of life, with a smile that could light up the darkest corners of the world. "You have to remember her as she was," Jenna cried, reaching out to the image, desperate for Eliza to see. "She's still with you, but you have to let her go." The scene flickered, and Jenna felt a surge of energy as Eliza's eyes widened in realization. "Let her go," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "But how?" Jenna's heart raced. "You have to forgive yourself, Eliza. You have to let go of the pain." The atmosphere grew tense, and the darkness seemed to ripple in response. The walls of Harlow House trembled as if the very foundation was aware of the emotional battle taking place. Shadows swirled violently, threatening to engulf everything. Suddenly, the vision shifted again, pulling Jenna deeper into Eliza's memories. She found herself in the kitchen, where the scent of baking bread filled the air. Laughter rang out as Margaret and Eliza played together, flour dusting their faces. It was a moment of pure joy, a memory untouched by tragedy. "Remember this," Jenna urged, feeling the warmth of the memory envelop her. Hold on to it. Margaret is still your daughter. She loves you. The shadows began to recede, but Eliza's face twisted in torment. But I lost her. I failed her. No, Jenna insisted, her voice rising above the chaos. You loved her. That's what matters. You can still honor her by remembering the joy she brought into your life. Just then, the scene morphed again, and Jenna found herself standing in front of the ancient oak tree, the very tree where Margaret's spirit had lingered. Its gnarled branches loomed overhead, casting eerie shadows on the ground. Margaret appeared beside Jenna, her expression a mixture of hope and fear. Jenna, please, she pleaded, her tiny voice shaking. She needs to remember. I want to be free. I'm trying. Jenna cried, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. We can do this together. But the shadows surged back, swirling violently around them. Jenna felt the darkness clawing at her mind, threatening to pull her into its depths. In that instant, a brilliant light burst forth from the oak, illuminating the scene. The shadows hissed and recoiled, revealing glimpses of Eliza's memories, every moment of laughter, every hug, every tear. Margaret, Jenna shouted, urging the little girl forward. Show your mother what she's forgotten. Margaret's face brightened with determination. She took a deep breath and stepped into the light, her essence shimmering like a star. Mama, she called, her voice echoing through the air. I'm still here. Please don't be sad. Eliza's gaze snapped to the light, her heart aching with recognition. The photograph slipped from her fingers, fluttering to the ground as she reached out, her face a mix of disbelief and yearning. Margaret? Is that you? As the light enveloped them, Jenna felt a rush of warmth, a connection forged between mother and daughter that transcended the pain of loss. Eliza began to sob, her heart breaking open as she whispered, I'm so sorry, my darling. I've been lost without you. The shadows began to dissipate, retreating in the face of love and remembrance. The air around them shimmered with the power of healing, and Jenna felt the weight of the house lifting, its sorrow beginning to fade. Remember the love? Jenna urged, feeling her own heart swell. That's how you set her free. As the words hung in the air, Eliza stepped forward, her arms outstretched. I love you, Margaret. I will always love you. In that moment, the garden bloomed anew, vibrant colors bursting forth as the darkness receded entirely. The house sighed, a long-held breath released, and Jenna felt the bond between them solidifying into something beautiful. But just as everything seemed to be falling into place, a thunderous crash echoed from the depths of Harlow House, shattering the tranquility. A swirling vortex of shadows roared to life, more furious than before, as if the house itself was resisting the transformation. No, we're not finished, Jenna shouted, bracing herself against the force of the darkness. The walls shook violently, and Eliza's figure wavered, torn between two worlds. Stay with me, Mama, Margaret cried, her voice piercing through the chaos. You can't leave me again. Jenna realized the battle was far from over. The house was still clinging to its sorrow, unwilling to let go. And if they didn't confront it now, they might all be trapped in this cycle forever. Together, Jenna shouted, reaching for both Margaret and Eliza. We need to face it together. We can break the cycle. As the shadows writhed and surged, Jenna felt their hands interlock, a powerful force of love and remembrance pushing against the dark. They stepped forward, hearts pounding, ready to confront the very essence of grief that had bound them for so long. And then, in the heart of the storm, they found their strength. As Jenna, Margaret, and Eliza locked hands, a warm glow radiated from their joined palms, illuminating the swirling darkness that threatened to consume them. The shadows writhed violently, but the power of their connection was undeniable, a force born from love and shared pain. Together, Jenna urged, her voice steady, despite the chaos surrounding them. We can do this. Margaret nodded, her small face set with determination. We'll show the house how much we love each other. Eliza squeezed their hands, her grief morphing into a fierce resolve. "I won't let my sorrow trap you any longer, my darling." As they pressed forward, the shadows recoiled, howling in protest. The walls of Harlow House seemed to tremble, and the air crackled with energy. They stepped closer to the heart of the vortex, where the shadows swirled like a tempest, a dark storm clamoring for dominance. "Remember," Jenna shouted. "Remember the laughter, the joy, the love you shared. That's stronger than any grief." With each word, the light from their hands pulsed brighter, forcing the shadows back. Jenna could feel the warmth of memories flooding the air-sunlit afternoons in the garden, the scent of lilacs, and the sound of laughter that once filled the halls of Harlow House. As they drew nearer, Jenna could see flickers of images within the darkness, moments of family happiness trapped in time, yearning to be set free. "Let her go," Jenna shouted into the chaos. "Margaret deserves to be remembered with joy, not sorrow." In response, the vortex thrashed violently, the shadows swirling into faces of anguish, but they stood firm, united in purpose. "You are not alone," Jenna cried. "You have each other." Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a massive figure, an amalgamation of grief and pain, representing all the lost years, all the trapped emotions that bound Eliza and Margaret. Its eyes glinted like black holes, consuming hope and light. "No!" Eliza shouted, her voice breaking through the darkness. "You do not control us. I choose to remember." With that declaration, a brilliant light burst forth from their hands, sweeping away the shadows like a tidal wave. The figure writhed, the anguish etched across its features, fading into the light. "Margaret, I love you," Eliza cried, tears streaming down her face. "I will always love you." In that moment, the darkness shattered. The massive figure collapsed into a whirlwind of shadows, dissipating into nothingness, and the air grew still. The garden around them bloomed into vibrant colors, a radiant tapestry of life and love. Jenna felt a wave of relief wash over her, the oppressive weight of Harlow House lifting. The haunting echoes of grief faded, replaced by the sound of a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves, a symphony of peace. Eliza and Margaret stood before Jenna, their figures glowing with a serene light. "Thank you," Margaret whispered, her voice soft and pure. "You helped us find each other again." "We are free now," Eliza added, her face radiant with a newfound joy. "Thank you for reminding me of what truly matters." As they embraced, Jenna felt the warmth of their love wrap around her like a comforting blanket. The shadows had been vanquished, and in their place, a deep sense of closure settled over Harlow House. But just as Jenna began to feel the finality of their victory, a thought struck her. "What about the house?" she asked, glancing around at the now peaceful surroundings. "What happens to it?" With a knowing smile, Eliza looked at Jenna. "It will remember, too. It will hold our love, not our pain." As the last remnants of darkness faded, the house began to transform. The peeling paint brightened, the broken windows shimmered, and the once somber structure radiated with life and warmth. Flowers bloomed in the garden, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of lilacs. Jenna felt a swell of joy. "It's beautiful!" she exclaimed, tears of happiness spilling down her cheeks. Margaret danced around them, her laughter ringing like bells in the air. "We can play here now, forever." Eliza turned to Jenna, gratitude shining in her eyes. "You are part of our family now. Thank you for helping us find our way home." Jenna smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. She had come seeking ghosts but had found something much more profound, a connection that transcended time and sorrow. As they stood together, the three of them bathed in the golden light of the setting sun, Jenna knew that the story of Harlow House was just beginning. A legacy of love and healing had taken root, and the echoes of laughter would forever fill its halls, transforming a place once marked by tragedy into a sanctuary of hope. And with that, Harlow House stood tall, a testament to the power of love, memory, and the unbreakable bonds that can transcend even the deepest grief. The whispers of the past had been replaced by songs of joy, resonating in the hearts of all who would come to know its story, a story that would echo through the ages. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Harlow House transformed into a beacon of warmth and life. Eliza, Margaret, and Jenna stood together, the air around them vibrant with renewed energy. The shadows that once haunted the halls had dissolved, leaving only echoes of laughter and love. "Thank you for helping us find each other," Eliza said, her voice filled with gratitude. Margaret twirled in the garden, her laughter ringing like music, a sound that now belonged to the house. Jenna felt a deep sense of belonging, knowing she had played a part in healing a family's sorrow. The house, once a prison of grief, was now a sanctuary, its walls alive with joyful memories waiting to be made. As night fell, Jenna bid farewell to Eliza and Margaret, knowing they would always be part of her story. As she walked away, she glanced back at Harlow House, now glowing softly under the moonlight, a symbol of hope and resilience. The laughter of a little girl danced in the breeze, a reminder that love could conquer even the darkest shadows. And in that moment, Jenna understood that true hauntings were not about ghosts. They were about the connections we forge and the love that endures beyond the confines of time. Harlow House would forever stand as a testament to that truth, a place where memories flourished and the bonds of family could never be broken. Leave your opinion in the comments.